You have online banking, you have the bill pay, and you have a direct deposit. And those things will, and they will enable the person not to have to come into the branches anymore. So brick and mortar really is a thing of the past.
Yes, everything is becoming electronic, and time is of the essence, and we don't want to
Yes.
stand in long lines anymore. And it's Friday, it's this rush hour, we are busy. So this is called again this Harbor Bank Smart Account.
Correct.
And so that's one of the great features. But you have so many more things going on. Let's talk about this program that you mentioned with Miss Sandy Workman, because some people may have been just tuning in. And this is Lou Field's BDX Live, February 10th, Black History Month 2020. And we're talking with our sponsor, Harbor Bank of Maryland. And we're talking about some of the electronic services that Harbor Bank has to make your life easier. So let's get back talking about the e-commerce or the small business or the CDC, or where are we going to go next, Ms. Thompson?
Well, let's talk about Harbor Bank CDC. And then
Okay.
within the Harbor Bank CDC, we have the Joseph Haskins Center. And just to give you some history, the Joseph Haskins Center was created during the time that the Freddie Gray uprising came about. And it gave the young folks, the majority entrepreneurs, a safe incubator to be able to come in and talk about their businesses and to network with their businesses. And with the CDC, we have a program. It's called the Emerging Developers. It's a training program for real estate individuals. It's about a 14-week program, and it would teach them how to go into how to do real estate development in the city of Baltimore. The city of Baltimore has 30 to 50,000 vacant properties, and so if you take this class, which is 14 weeks, it's going to teach you what to do, so you can learn how to go about getting some of those properties. And with that, that teaches people to go back into their communities, to redevelop and to take advantage of the wealth that's being created with the changes happening in the city. The city has so many vacant buildings open in so many areas.
Too many. It's sad, sad.
Very. And so if we're able to get back in our communities to revitalize and to redevelop those communities, as well as then we're becoming developers and entrepreneurs in our neighborhoods.
Folks, this is Lou Fields, February 10th. If you're interested in calling in and speaking to our guests, you can reach us at 410-481-1010. And again, we're speaking with Ms. Karen Thompson, the Vice President of Electronic Banking at Harbor Bank. And so that's great. Let's talk a little bit more about the Emerging Developers Real Estate class. Did we cover that already?
Yes, we just talked about
Okay. And so next you said you wanted to bring us some Black history facts from Harbor Bank.
our Black History Facts, because it is February, and I just want to talk about two founders that founded Harbor Bank back in 1982. One was was William March, and he was a World War II and Korea War veteran. He was the founder of the March's funeral homes, and he was one of the founders of Harbor Bank, as well as George Russell. He was the first Black circuit judge in Maryland. He was the first Black city solicitor in Maryland. So we had so much history coming through the bank. If you wouldn't you can't imagine how many folks have came through the doors of Harbor Bank, whether it be through the board, through employers, through customers. Harbor Bank to me, has made such an impact on the Black community as well as myself. And when I say Karen, I'm talking about our mission statement, because Mr. Haskin, he's always been an advocate of continuing your education, making sure that we have the tools to succeed. So it's not just a place of employment. That place has been a place for me. And I celebrated 30 years last year at Harbor Bank.
Let's give a round of applause for that. 30 years. Congratulations. I
Yeah.
mean, woo-wee. So you are Harbor Bank, no doubt.
Some people would say that. I think
Yes.
I've gotten a lot from Harbor Bank over my 30 years. And if you think about what our mission statement is, it says to build a thriving customer-focused financial service corporation that offers a full array of high-quality financial services to its customers and an enriching environment to its employees while upholding its responsibility to the shareholders and community. I think I've gotten that from Harbor Bank. Mr. Haskins has always had his door open for us. We're able to go in and have conversation. He's pushing education. He's making sure that his employees as well as his customers have a thriving place to come to.
Folks, it's 1:38 on February 10th, and we've been joining in studio, and we're going to ask them to pull up to the mic and get ready to say their hellos, because there's a connection between the host here today, the special guest from Harbor Bank, and our two new guests who've joined in. We are all connected through the name of the great late Ray Haysburg Sr., So I want to ask our guests to pull up and make sure their mic is loud and clear. Say hello. This is Miss Deborah Keller Green, Chairman of the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce.
Hello, good morning.
Mic to
Good
the
to be
mic.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, good morning. It's great to be here.
And we also have the president, the young Kendrick Tillman. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
And folks, this is really a really unique occasion in studio today because all of us are connected by way of a fellow named Ray Haysburg. So we're going to do reflections on Ray Haysburg first, and then we're going to get into why we're all here to talk about everything. So why don't we start with you, Miss Karen, because I'm sure 30 years at Harbor Bank, you had to have known Mr. Ray Haysburg.
I did have the opportunity of meeting Mr. Haysburg, and it was a great opportunity. And I have some facts for Mr. Haysburg as well, since it's Black History Month. Ray Haysburg was a World War II veteran and a Tuskegee Airman. He was one of the co-founders of the Park Sausage Company, and he was the largest African-American owned business, which was the largest African-American owned business in the country. He was a former Greater Baltimore Urban League, as well as he was one of the first founders of the President's Roundtable.
That's
So
right.
those are my facts.
That's right. You talk about a giant with those kind of things. So, Ms. Chairman, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I love your new hairstyle.
Oh, well, thank
you. Got it. You got the twist for the Black History Month. So tell us, I know you guys got some stuff we're going to talk about, but since we're all here and we all got the same connection to Mr. Ray, tell us about your reflections on Mr. Haysburg.
Mr. Haysburg was my business mentor when I started in business 22 years ago. And he also led the crusade for economic empowerment, and I was part of that crusade to keep the dollars flowing in the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of his students of his entrepreneurial class. And so there was just that business, civic, civil rights connection, or economic justice connection, however you put that. And he also was part of the founding members of the Greater Baltimore Black Chamber of Commerce 14 years ago, February
first chairman.
2006.
The first chairman.
First chairman. That's
So-
right.
so- Yes, indeed.
My commitment was to his legacy, and that's surprising that I'm sitting here as the chairperson 14 years later.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Haysburg gets his hand on you. So now we're going to ask Mr. Kendrick to talk up as the president. Your reflections on Mr. Ray Haysburg.
Well, at the end of the day, I stand on his shoulders. 30 years ago, I was only 8 years old.
Wow.
And so having a grandfather who owned the Sphinx Club on Pennsylvania Avenue, so all the people who are seniors come to me and say, hey, your grandfather was similar to a Ray Haysburg who cared about minority entrepreneurship and growth and investment. And so when I say I stand on his shoulders, it's just amazing to be in the circles of people that have actually been able to touch and see his businesses continue to thrive, even though he isn't here anymore. And that's the true art of a legacy, of being able to put things in place that you can pass on through the generations to come.
That's important. That's important. And one thing about Mr. Haysburg that I think Deborah touched on a little bit, and maybe we'll talk about that a little more. Not only was he a keen business person with a keen mind, I mean, he was sharp as a razor. I mean, just sharp. But he was a teacher, and he was willing always to give us the benefit of his experience and knowledge. And I think one of the things I always loved about Mr. Haysburg during the Black Chamber of Commerce meetings was his lectures. And he would give us a point, and everybody would be quiet, and we would all pick up something from those wonderful lectures. And so here we are 13 years later, 14 years now, and the chamber is still going strong. So I was telling Ms. Thompson, one of the first meetings we had with Mr. Haysburg, the first organizing meetings, and the question became, where would we open up the bank account? And Mr. Haysburg quietly stood up, you know how he would do, stood up and take a look at you. And he said, well, that's not up for discussion. We're going to open this account at the Harbor Bank of Maryland. Mm-hmm. And so his dedication and his service to our communities and organizations and institutions remain with us. And so during this Black History Month, hey, we're dedicating this show to Mr. H. Okay. So now, tell us what you have going on and what's coming up with the Black Chamber.
Well, just understanding that the Black Chamber has a mission to help businesses grow. Mm-hmm. And many people say, Kendrick, what is a chamber? Why should I join